I'm currently sitting in a ground floor flat here in a rough English town that I would care not to name. But to me, it's the kind of place that most people pass through on their way to go somewhere else. And I have to keep asking myself how I've actually ended up here in the first place. Completely skint, waiting for the next benefit payment, and I often find myself listening to the postman because there's nothing else to do. I did have my own house once. It was a proper house and I owned it completely outright. But then I sold it, put all the money in the bank, and I told myself I was starting a new life in Thailand. I thought £280,000 was more than enough to see me through all the way to the end. I told myself I would keep my costs as low as I could and just live a quiet life, enjoy the weather out there, and have a beer every now and then. I had no expectations that I was going to go mad. I told all my mates that I'd be very careful. Quite a lot of them were worried about me. I told myself I would be careful. But the thing is, I wasn't. I went to Pattaya because I loved it from the first time I saw it. And it felt like the place wanted me as much as I wanted it. Even if I had to pay for it. And even if around the edges it does seem to be a bit fake. I wanted nothing more than the noise, the girls, and the easy chat, laughing at the bars, all the things that went along with it, and the feeling that I was somebody new and not my old self. That's what I thought I was getting myself into. That's why I took my savings there, and that's why I sold everything I had, because I wanted a proper life once. You only have one go, and at that age, that was all I could do. I didn't know what else I could even think about doing, and that's what makes it even worse. Everything I did out there, everything I tried to do, always had one goal in mind. A good time, to feel happy, to feel like I was doing the right thing. That's why I did everything that I did. It wasn't because I wanted to fail. I can't blame the bars or the town, for example. I can't blame anyone apart from myself, but I wish I could, because that would make things a little bit easier. When it came to my work and the things I used to do, it's nothing really to brag about. I left school really early on, and I went straight into working to boring jobs, unfortunately. I did a bit of lorry driving from time to time, but then I would just go from job to job, never really being able to stick with anything, and that's why it was so difficult. I tried quite a few things over the years, but I never found a passion, and it was just working to survive, which is exactly what I didn't want to do, but I was stuck and I had no choice. I never got far with anything. I never had a real trade that I could hang on to, and that was something I wanted, but I can't do anything. It was what it was. I was very proud when I finally managed to buy my house. Paid it off over the years, and while I did buy it at a price that was a lot more affordable than people in a similar position for me today, it was still an achievement and one of those things that I do cherish. I didn't have a wife or any kids. I just went to the pub usually on Fridays, and I treated myself to takeaways on Saturdays and maybe one on Sunday as well. The problem was, by the time Sunday night comes around, Monday's only a night away, and then the whole week has to start again. I did have a couple of girlfriends along the way when I was younger, but it was nothing that really lasted. I didn't really know what I was doing half the time, if I'm being honest, but it was like nothing gelled and nothing came good for me. I just didn't know, really, how to keep anything together. As much as I wanted to, it was always a dream. And I think that's what makes Thailand even more attractive and why everything sounded so much better there. Work, it was always dull and boring. And when I had money, it was only just enough to survive on, and that's no way to live. By the time all the days start feeling like they're the same, one after the other, and it's a daily grind, that's when you get bored and you start to feel like that going to the doctor's appointment isn't actually an escape from your normal life. That's how worn down I felt. I didn't know how else to feel. Sometimes I'd sit in my kitchen at night because I'd bored of watching the TV and I didn't want to go and lie down, and I'd be sat there at the table with a beer trying to think about what to do next. What I'm trying to say is I was miserable. For years I was miserable. But I did save little bits every now and then, didn't spend very much, and there was always something further down the line that I was looking for. You reach 40 and 50 and you're still nowhere close. Then you start knowing that you need to make things happen a lot quicker if you want things to happen for you soon. People would say that I should be happy with what I had. I had a few mates in similar positions to me, but they just seemed to coast along as if nothing bothered them, but that wasn't me. I watched some of my mates have kids and then they got divorced and then got back together again, and they were living these lives that I felt that I wasn't part of. Maybe I dodged a bullet in that sense, but I don't know. Maybe I did what I did was because I wanted what they had, but I couldn't have it at home. I will never know. I first decided to go to Thailand back in 2005. I had a good friend at work, used to go there all the time and he never stopped going on about it. I wasn't going for a long time, just 2 weeks. Cheap flight, going to Bangkok and Chiang Mai. I had to see what all the fuss was about. I'm going to put my hand up and say I hated Bangkok right from the start. There were too many people there, it's too busy, everything felt so awkward, everyone trying to sell you something, and to me, I just didn't know what the rules were. Next, I went up to Chiang Mai. People said that up there, it was different to Bangkok. It was more peaceful, it was calmer, and easier to get about. But that place bored me. I walked about a bit, went to look at some of the famous temples, but I'm just eating alone and sitting in the hotel thinking, this isn't that great, why did I come all this way? I was just about ready to go home and call it a really bad idea. Then, when I was in a taxi, I was saying that I didn't really like the place, and he said, what about Pattaya? I'd never understood why he told me that, but his English was reasonable, and I thought, well, if he says that, maybe I should try it. He said something about, that's where all people like you go. I don't know what he was implying at the time, but if I look back, I think he was having a laugh on me, but I'll never know. So that was it then, I did. I got the bus from Chiang Mai down to Bangkok, and then from Bangkok to Pattaya. And within an hour of being there, I knew that that place had something special. It wasn't because it was a pretty place or it looked good, it's not about that. It was just so easy to get about and so exciting and exhilarating all at the same time. The first day I was there, I had a beer on Walking Street and I just watched the lights, and every 10 minutes someone was walking past smiling at me. I knew what it meant, but it wasn't about what it meant. It was about that it felt real, and that's what mattered to me. Yes, I knew that was their job. I'm not that thick, but I liked it. I liked the way that they seemed to want me there, or at least they made me feel like they wanted me there. I met a few lads from England, where I was from, and they were living there long term. They said they lived there because it was cheap, you could live well on not much money, and you could have a fantastic time. Back in 2005, it was so much cheaper than it is later on when I got there that you could spend next to nothing and have the best time you've ever had. I stayed the rest of that first trip in Pattaya. I learned how to use the bat buses, that was fun, and I found lots of bars that I just loved more than anything. The bars became heaven to me, and which soys I found were better than others. I just stayed in a small hotel off Soi Buakhao. It was only a place to sleep and shower, that was it. I didn't want anything else. When I flew home, I had this idea that I'd actually found my place. It was very late in life, but I'd found it, and I could go back, and I'd feel all right all over again. Back in the UK after that first trip, I went back to work, and I just felt older than I was before. I kept thinking about Pattaya while I was working, and nothing made sense to me anymore. There were some songs that played in the bars all the time back then, and I still hear them today in my head. But those songs played in my head every day at work. I stopped going out as much at home because it just didn't feel fun anymore. It felt pointless and worthless, and nothing could come close to how amazing Pattaya was. So I just ticked along. I would work, get paid, pay bills, and watch TV. That was just my usual daily life, and I suppose that is quite boring if you think about it. I started reading a few forums and understanding what Pattaya was like and learning more about it. There were other forums I went on that had visas, talking about visas and things, and that was something that was interesting, and it sort of made me feel connected to Thailand, even though I wasn't there. Lots of people seemed to be in the same position, reading up on forums, commenting on them, and trying to be connected without actually being there. When I got the Thailand drive, that's what I like to call it, the drive to be in Thailand, I began counting my money a lot more carefully. If I stopped going to the pub as often, and if I took lunch to work as opposed to buying it, and if I didn't buy clothes as often as I had before, I could put money away over the course of a few years, and maybe I'd be able to actually live in Thailand. That's what I was thinking. A few of my mates took the mick out of me, saying I was obsessed with Thailand, but they just didn't get it. If I look back, maybe I actually was obsessed because it had become everything. When I get a picture in my head, I don't let go of it easily, and I didn't want to let go of Thailand. I kept telling myself I wasn't running away from anything. That's not what it was about. I was just going to do something that made sense to me and made me feel excited. I booked another flight, but work got in the way and said I had to cancel it. That really annoyed me, but I did get my money back, so that's one thing. I did notice I was getting angry at people a lot more than I used to before, usually for no reason at all, and I didn't like who I was becoming. But I also, at the time, didn't see a way to make England ever feel right again. It wasn't right, it was wrong in every way. At the time, I wasn't thinking about finding a wife there or someone younger than me, any sort of midlife crisis. That's not what it was about. I just wanted to feel relaxed and wanted, and in a place where I could relax. Pattaya did give that for me. It really did when I was there, and once you've had it, you can't look back to what else you had before. Standing in the cold, in the warning, in the snow, in the rain, it's awful. And because you know there's something else better out there, you tend to gravitate towards it. At least I did. I started asking for more overtime at the latest job I had, and I put extra time in saving more money, and it made a difference. It made a difference, and that made me be able to go back to Thailand 3 years later. It was 2008 when I went back for 3 weeks this time, and I didn't waste a single day. I stayed in that same guest house that I stayed in Soi Buakhao, and I just learned about lots of things that I would think about if I was ever going to live there. It wasn't just a holiday for me, it was a reconnaissance mission. Where to get laundry done, where to get a haircut for only a couple of quid, and which bars I liked more than the others. I mean, that's a bit of a misnomer because I liked every single bar, but some bars were just that bit better. I wasn't a big spender when I was there, although I spent more than I would have liked, but it was because I wanted to enjoy Pattaya for what it was there for. I didn't want to scrimp and save. I loved walking down the beach most afternoons. I never went swimming, I never felt comfortable swimming there, but just looking around at all the different characters and just how amazing it all was. Sometimes I'd just sit and watch people and plan what I was going to do that evening. I always ran into people. Every day, it seemed. I met a few expat guys who had been there for years. Some of them had Thai wives and some of them didn't. And most of them told me the same thing. Be careful and don't get involved with a girl that works in a bar, and that was basically it. Don't make promises when you're drunk. That's a good one. When they said this, I found myself just nodding along like I knew what I was talking about. But the truth was, what I heard, I wanted to do those things, at least some of them. After you go to the same bar a few times, the staff there remember you, and that's only after being there a few times. I'd understand that this is amazing. How did she remember me? Look how beautiful she is, and she remembers me. I suppose that's one of the reasons that the bars are so good. The money, even when you're enjoying yourself in Pattaya in that time, did go a lot further than it did at home. And the scary thing was, I started to feel rich when I wasn't rich. That's one of the things that happened to many people I knew around that time who went to Thailand that I spoke to. You feel rich, like you can do things that you shouldn't be doing, but you feel like you can because it's so cheap, but you don't add up how many times you're doing it, and therefore it's not cheap at all. I loved how easy it was though. That's what it was all about. The nights out were everything I'd ever wanted. Just hopping onto a bat bus, that was amazing. It felt so exhilarating because it was so different to what you do at home. 7-Eleven, always going in there for drinks and food just to spend a little bit. It was awesome. It really was. At the end of those 3 weeks, I can remember sitting on the balcony of my hotel, guest house, whatever you want to call it, and I had a can of beer from 7-Eleven, and I thought, this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'll end up. I knew it wasn't possible right there and then, but maybe I could make it happen soon. I flew back home thinking that this was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Returning home, I didn't want to, but my head was full of ideas and plans that I wanted to make happen. All I needed to do was make them happen. I didn't want to actually think about anything other than making it happen. When I was home again, I made a decision. I was going to retire in Pattaya, not in 20 years' time, but as soon as I could make it work. I tightened up even more on spending than I had before. Even more overtime I took, and I just threw everything into the bank. I sold my car, my bike, everything I had, and just looking at the money in my bank, waiting for what I think would be a good figure. I kept thinking about it and working it out, trying to make sure I didn't make a mistake. Would it be enough? And every time I kept these calculations, it did seem to be enough. I told myself I'd be very, very careful. I wouldn't do anything stupid. But by 2010, I was 60, and I looked at what I had, the value in the house, and said, okay, I'm selling it. I'm selling everything, adding it to the savings, and then I could leave. I had £280,000 cash after everything was sold, and I thought that was an awful lot of money. I told myself I'd live on the interest and a bit of the principal, and it would last ages. I kept thinking about the lads who had done it and were there and still there years later. It's not like I was a brave man. That's not what it was about. It was like I thought I was being careful. I didn't want to die in the same chair, in the same kitchen. That was definitely something I didn't want to have to do. I felt angry that I hadn't done it previously when I'd come to the decision. I think I could have made it work many years before, maybe 5 anyway. But I'd made the decision and I was happy. I knew I could get a retirement visa, that should be easy. I knew I should be able to rent a place, that would be easy. And then all I would need to do was move my money to Thailand, and that was it. I'd be living the best life ever. That's what I did. When the sale went through, I felt amazing for the first time in years. It's one thing to go to Thailand on holiday and feel really good, but going there permanently is a different feeling altogether, and you'll only understand if you experience it yourself. I paid off the last things that I owed, didn't really owe that much, had a credit card, £1,000 on it, and then that was it. I told them I was leaving at work, got my retirement visa, and booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok. I got rid of everything, left nothing behind, and then I felt liberated. I think that's the best way to describe it. I landed and went through immigration as you do, and this time I got a taxi straight to Pattaya and watched the road signs and counting down the kilometres until I got there. Under 2 hours, but those 2 hours feel like an eternity because you know what awaits. I only had 2 bags with me, one bag with clothes in and a backpack, and that was it. I knew I could buy new things when I was there. Again, I need to talk about the liberating feeling that gives you, because you don't need all this stuff that you've accumulated over the years. If anything, that ties you to a place you don't want to be. Now I was where I wanted to be with just a few items, and that was more than good enough. I checked myself into a cheap hotel for a week just so I could look around for a place to rent. I started walking around looking at different agencies, and I found that it was very easy to rent somewhere, so much easier than it would have been at home. I really felt like I had enough. The thing was, though, I didn't feel trapped anymore, and that was an amazing feeling. The first night there, I walked Walking Street. What a time it was. Now, Walking Street, from my understanding, isn't what it was like it was when I was there, but at the time, I loved it. It was amazing, though. And I keep using that word because it really was. I was there, retired, and I thought I'd be there forever. I really did think I'd be there forever. The first few months that I was there were the best I'd felt in years. I'd wake late, no time to get up, no appointments, and it was great. I'd go for a walk along the beach, something I did every day, and then I'd find myself just getting a cheap meal for lunch. There are some really great and affordable restaurants around there, which is fun, but if you want even cheaper, the street food's everywhere. After that, I'd go back and spend a bit of time in my room, and then, as the sun dropped, I'd head out. Same area most nights. Couple of bars where the staff knew my name, and I really liked that. I wasn't trying to be young again, I just wanted company, and that was what the company was there, and I loved it. I kept spending what I thought was a sensible amount. Just a few beers and a few drinks for the girls, some food, and that was it. A ride back home. Didn't spend much at all, and I didn't think I was, but I probably was spending more than I should have been. I told myself that I was only doing this temporarily, and eventually I'd only want to go to the bars less occasionally, but it never seemed to happen like that. When I opened a local bank account, I felt even more connected to the country, and I transferred all my money in, and that felt great because I wanted to disconnect myself from England. I never had plans to go back, so it only made sense. I started meeting other expats and go and watch football with them in places near LK Metro. And we'd just sit there, not really talking about much, but it was great to have a bit of camaraderie. Some nights I'd do the same as them. Some nights I'd go off on my own, walking Street, which I did almost every night for the first few weeks of being there. I loved it. I didn't need to do anything more than that, I didn't think. I didn't want a wife or anything like that. I didn't think I needed one. I just wanted the days to pass and be happy at the same time. It was going that way. Initially, it was going well, and I was happy. But you never seem to keep the same habits, do you? At least I didn't. What I wanted didn't turn out to be anything like what I actually got. It was different. And that's what makes it all the more difficult to talk about. You probably know where this is going, but I met her on a Tuesday. As stupid as that sounds to remember, I do. She was 25 years old, or that's what she told me, and I believed it because she looked it. She worked in an amazing bar just off Walking Street, and she just looked like everything I wanted in a girl. Every girl that I'd spoken to, I felt great with. But there's girls that you feel different with, and I know everyone says the same thing, but that's why you end up with someone, isn't it? Because for you, she was different, and for me, she was different. She asked my name just like normally do, hand out for a handshake, playing games and pool, and we just talked all night. She spent time with me, and it was like it was meant to be. I kept going back a few nights in a row, always buying drinks with her, always going with her and going for a meal afterwards and spending even more time with her, and I was happy. She kept saying how she wanted to leave the bar soon, said that she didn't like it and she was tired, and she wanted a small place of her own. I respected her openness and honesty, and I believed every word she said. She asked me what I wanted to do and if I would be interested in having my own place as well. That's the first time she mentioned it after I'd only known her for a few days. She always seemed to be interested in what I wanted too, and I respected that. It wasn't about her only, it was about her and me. And I do know what you're thinking. Of course, that's the script that they all have. But I believed it. I did. I wanted to hear it as well. I think that's what makes it even more tough because I liked what she was saying. Everything she said drew me in even a little bit more. And I did. I fell in love with her almost immediately. It didn't take long either. A couple of weeks, maybe 3, and I was acting like she was my girlfriend. I did try to convince myself I wasn't rushing. I was just being honest about what I wanted. And the thing was, I wanted her. I wanted everything that she talked about, and I wanted to do it with her. I told some of my friends that I'd met someone that I was in love with, and few of them looked at me like, great, go for it. Few of them looked at me like, be careful. But I think most of them had been there for a long time and knew what the game was. And when I said I met someone, to them, they thought, it's not serious, it's a bit of fun. But to me, it was serious. She was always leaving the bar to be with me, even when I wasn't there or going there. She'd come to my place, and I thought that she respected me because of that. It didn't take long for me to feel like we were a real couple. She was still working in the bar and I was seeing her every day, but I thought that we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I knew that I needed to make a move quickly if I wanted to stay with her, because I knew that someone as amazing like that wouldn't be able to stay single for long. So I asked her after about 3 weeks if she'd like to move in with me. And she did. And she left the bar. And we became a couple. And we lived amazingly for the next 3 to 4 months. I can't remember exactly how, but it was the best time of my life. It really was. We'd just do the same things I did before. Go for walks on the beach together, go out to eat cheap street food and lunch, and then at night we'd go out and have a great time. Usually we'd go to different places I'd never been before that were more Thai-centric, and that opened me up to Pattaya in a whole different way than I'd ever experienced before. And after 3 months, I felt like it was now or never and I had to marry her. Buying the house, that wasn't actually my idea at all. The way I look back, it was her who seemed to steer me in that direction. She said that we could rent somewhere, but the place I was living in was only small. And she said that we could get kicked out at any time, and I think the way she said it was trying to scare me into thinking that things happened that didn't in Thailand. When I talked about saving money and keeping our lifestyle cheap, she'd go quiet for hours, and all of a sudden I'm trying to think of what I can do to make her happy again. After another month, I thought, okay, I've got enough money to buy somewhere, so let's go and have a look. Let's go and look at houses. So we went round with an agent. It was just one that we found, and there were houses everywhere. Everywhere that we looked, there were amazing houses within budget. I didn't realise how cheaply you could buy houses for in Thailand. And because I saw that, what I could actually have and how we could actually live, I think that's why I decided it would be a good idea to buy a house. I knew what it meant. She would be the one who would own it. I would be the one who lived in it. But I knew I could get a lease, and for some reason, though, I never even bothered. I just thought it'll be okay or I'll sort it out eventually. And I should have bothered, but I didn't. At this point, we were married, we had a house, and I'd only known her for less than 6 months, but I was madly in love with her like I'd never been, and I felt like she loved me as well. It was amazing to be in that position. But everything from there could only move in one direction because I wasn't careful, I wasn't being safe, I was just doing things in the moment to try to keep the feeling of elation that was with me all the time. It just got worse and worse, but not yet, although the shocking speed of the downfall is quite scary given how long it took me to earn everything that I lost. When we moved into the house, that should have been a calming effect for both of us. But I never had my hand in control, it felt. She was the one who told everyone where to put things that we ordered, which room was ours and which was hers and which was not, and where the office could be. She was in control of absolutely everything. If she wanted a guest around, she was okay with that, but if I did, she would have to think about it and usually say no. She took everything and put it into her name, the internet. Even my phone went into her name. The water and the electric bill was in her name as well, and she just said it was easier if she handled the bills because she spoke Thai. I understood that and it made sense, but she was in control of pretty much everything. She made a group chat one day for the house and she added 2 friends without asking me. Just said it was handy for shopping lists. She changed a Wi-Fi password and forgot to tell me, she said, and then I'm asking her about it. And it did feel very strange that she wanted complete control. It was as if she was a control freak, but I hadn't noticed that about her until it was too late. One day, I can distinctly remember moving the sofa, so it was in a better position and I could see the TV better. And then she shouted at me, telling me to put it back where it was, otherwise she'd have a problem. What a strange thing to say, but I just went along with it. She took the spare key away as well, just said she was going to keep it safe. And then she made one for a friend. And then another friend. And I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but I was happy, and I was still happy. That's the thing, I was still happy. Everything she did, I just had to tell myself it didn't matter, because we were happy, and all the big spending was out of the way. At night, she was always affectionate and nice and kind, but I don't know if it was just her way to get what she wanted. I bet it was. Little things that needed buying every now and then when a light bulb broke or bin bags, she demanded that I go out and get them as soon as she saw them as a requirement. I just went along with it because I wanted to keep her happy. But I was starting to get a little bit afraid of how violent she could be in the moment if something didn't go her way. Something strange happened next. Her friends came and moved in without even asking me. I was just there, actually in my underwear, walking down the steps, and all of a sudden, 3 girls walk in. She said one girl had trouble with a guy and needed a place to stay for a few nights, and the other 2 just wanted somewhere to stay. These were 3 of her bar girl friends, and they'd moved into our house. My house, or her house, should I say. But at the start, I was quite excited about it. The thought of 3 bar girls and my wife in the same house with me. I thought that was something dreams were made of, and I expected things to go well for me because of it. But for her, it wasn't like that. It was as if they were there for her and their benefit, not mine. And I felt that was a bit unfair. But what it meant was I'm buying things and they're the ones helping themselves to it. Food and drink and using the aircon in multiple rooms, and the bills are going through the roof, and they're just completely disrespecting me. That's how it seems, and I'm not getting anything back to make it worthwhile, and that to me felt like a big betrayal. In the evenings, the girls did sit with me and they called me uncle. I thought that was weird. They tried to laugh at my jokes every now and then, but I just didn't like the way they behaved around me. They were meant to behave like bar girls, not like friends of my wife, because they were bar girls and they worked in a bar. So why weren't they acting like bar girls? It shocked me and sickened me, but I had to put up with it. It felt like she was building a life with what I had, and I was just there as an accessory that could be thrown away when necessary. Although it wasn't her time to do that yet, that's what it started to feel like, and I was getting worried and scared. But at the same time, being with her and the things she did with me made everything worthwhile for that split-second moment. It was a very strange situation. We had quite a lot of strange things happen over the next few months. A few other bar girl friends moved in, and one day we had a very shocking incident. I was walking from the bedroom down to the downstairs bathroom because she was in the one upstairs, and one of her friends was in it, and she was doing something very inappropriately. She had a metal spoon and there was a lighter underneath it. Let's just leave it at that. And then before long, I didn't know what to think. She was taking drugs in the bathroom, and I didn't like that, and I rushed upstairs to tell my wife, and she just said, "Don't worry about it." Mai Panrai, she said. You probably know what that is in Thailand, but I don't want to say. But I was shocked and disgusted that that was happening in my house. I start fighting with my wife more because of it, and I'm telling her we want these people out of the house, it could give us problems. But she didn't like to hear me say it. As far as she was concerned, she was this big person who was helping out these girls, and because of it, she was big-headed. And because she was big-headed, she liked the feeling of authority she had over these girls, and me, it seemed. But I hated it. I didn't want her to have that authority over me. I don't know who or how she thought she did. But she did, because she got out of me everything I had. I don't know. Difficult to talk about. But that girl doing drugs in my bathroom, that, for me, was a very scary situation, especially given the jail situation in Thailand, and the thoughts of going to jail there started to scare me. Although it wasn't me doing drugs, you never know. They could use me as a scapegoat. Eventually, her friends did move out, and that gave me a bit of respite. But when they moved out, she was going out all the time, back to the bar, just to hang out with them. That's how she phrased it. She was hanging out with them in the bar. She wasn't doing anything, she wasn't working for drinks or doing anything at all, just hanging out. And I wanted that to be true, so I treated it as if it was. She would leave around 8 p.m. and she would give me a kiss goodbye and a smile and say that she'd be back soon. But then she'd turn up at 2 o'clock in the morning, smelling of smoke and all kinds of other things that you wouldn't want your wife to smell of. I asked her what she'd been doing, and she'd just stay chatting with the girls and helping out when she could. She said that I'm only doing this because you didn't want them to live here. And then she turned it around on me as if it was my fault that she was going out. If I look back at that and think how clever she was, how manipulative she was, and how ruthless she was, she had turned around the fact that she was leaving every night, going back to the bar where I met her to hang out with friends. She made that my fault because I told her that her friends couldn't live with us. I don't know what to make of that, but it was quite worrying and quite shocking. On the odd night that she stayed at home, she was always doing things, pacing around and restless as if she didn't want to be there, and asking me if I wanted to go out. But I wanted to relax most of the time. I was retired, so I didn't know what to do. I tried to do things with her at home, just basic things that husband and wife did. Cooking and watching a film and sleeping early, things that I wanted to do in retirement. But she said it was boring and that all I wanted to do was sleep. And I thought that was normal. She always rolled her eyes and said I should try harder and I should live a little. And I didn't know what she expected me to do. I don't know how she changed so much from how she was when I met her to how she was now, but she had changed, and everything that happened was my fault if it didn't go her way. I didn't know why she was acting like this, but if I look back, I know exactly why she was acting like this. It was just part of the playbook, waiting for my money to run out. I was spending a lot more money than I should have been, and I didn't even notice it at the start. It was just small things to start with. Bills usually that were one thing were a lot higher. And the thing that hurt the most was we'd go out shopping, and I'd planned to spend about 2,000 baht, but by the end of it, we've spent 5,000 or 6,000 baht. She bought a bit for her mum to send home, and she bought something for her friend. And for her, it was normal. It was like she liked to be this big character who could give gifts to people, but that was coming out of my pocket. But then bigger things started not long after. She wanted a scooter because we were always using taxis and she didn't like it. But then she wanted a car and I found myself buying one, thinking that this would be the last thing. It was always framed as the last thing. We need this and then everything will be better. But then it was always something else after, and it never happened to be the last thing. I was never going out anymore, but I was spending more than I was if I was going out by myself. That was a problem. My treat was a few beers alone. That was it, while she was out at the bar saying she was just seeing friends. I told myself that this is the life I got for myself, just live with it. At least I had a beautiful wife. That's what I had to keep telling myself, otherwise I would have probably gone crazy. Every few weeks more and more money was going out. A month's living expenses going in 2 days, and I'm getting panicked, but also I'm just trying to accept it for what it is and still think I've got more than enough to last me forever. Some months I tried to track how much money was going out, but by the time we got to halfway through the month, I was so panicked I started to just not look at it because I couldn't bring myself to know the truth. I stopped checking and I stopped being sensible, and all I could think about was what I was going to do. But when she came home, although she would be grumpy and miserable, she still was my wife, and she was still beautiful and affectionate. And it was because she was like that I kept moving in this painful direction, even though I didn't want to. One night, I decided I had to go and check what she was doing in the bar because she never wanted to come home. She said she was just hanging around with friends, and I believed her. For weeks and months, I believed her. But this time, she said she was meeting friends early and she would be home a lot later than normal, and that sounded a bit odd. I was wide awake, couldn't sleep, and that's why I decided to go out, so I just walked out of the house and I got a taxi down to the bar where she worked before and where she said she didn't work anymore. When I got there, I saw her in the bar, in the same skirt I'd seen in the laundry that afternoon, sitting with an older guy, older than me, laughing and touching his arm and talking with him and drinking and clinking glasses, and then, well, she kissed him. That was a shock. She wasn't helping a friend or sitting having a chat with friends. She was working. She saw me and her face changed all of a sudden, and then she smiled like nothing was wrong and told me to go inside. How did she think that was normal? I don't know. I just stood outside and watched thinking this is crazy, and I walked and turned away. I should have gone in and confronted her, but I felt like I couldn't, and I just walked all the way back to where we lived. It took me an hour to get back, but all that time my heart's racing because I feel like I've just done stupid things and now I'm trapped somewhere with someone who wasn't who I thought she was. I felt so sick, I felt so old and so stupid, and I just sat there and waited for her to come back. She came back at 4 o'clock in the morning. That was the latest she ever came back, and she just said she went for a late night snack. That's why she was so late, and she asked why I was awake. I said I saw her, and she said, yeah, you did. I was just sitting with a friend. I told you I'm sitting with friends. I tried to explain that it wasn't like that. I saw what you did. I saw everything. She said it's not a problem. We stayed together. You husband, me wife, no problem. How she put it exactly. I didn't see it like that though. It was crazy. I couldn't believe what she was saying or what she was doing, and I was done with the lies. I felt like I was completely done with them. She just said I was jealous and boring and that I didn't understand Thailand. What a crazy thing to say. I said I understood that I was being made a fool of and I wasn't having it. And just like that, she went to bed and left me sitting there. And then I'm just thinking, I've just ruined my life. The next day, I tried to talk when we were both sober. I said we needed to be honest and know what we were going to do. She told me I was making a big thing out of nothing and that I should stop acting like her boss. I said I didn't talk like her boss at all. She was like my boss, but according to her, I was the one who was wrong. She said she's happy that she was my wife, but she needed her freedom. She needed to be able to do her own thing, and I should just be happy that I had her as a wife, and everything else that she did wasn't my problem. That was crazy. It stung so much because I paid for this house that we were in, and the fridge that she'd just taken food out of, and the food that was in the fridge. Everything that was meant to be my new start and our new start together I'd paid for, so all I needed from her was a bit of respect, but it seemed she didn't care. She had no care whatsoever about the situation, and then she started crying because she said I was cruel. Couldn't believe she said that. I couldn't believe that she thought I was being cruel. But if I look back, I don't think she thought like that at all. She was just trying to get rid of me even quicker so that she could have even more freedom. Dreadful. A dreadful human being. It didn't last much longer than that. By the time I faced the numbers properly, the damage was already done. 280,000. That first went to 110. That was with the house. After that, I'm looking at 50,000. And then, after that, not much time left. It's nearly all gone. That was it. Over the course of a few years, all my money gone. I had nothing. No connection to the house, no lease, nothing at all. I could have done a lease, and I knew I could. I just never got round to it. We were husband and wife, and I knew I could get half of everything, but the way she said it was, take me to court then. That's what she said. By the time it came to the end, when we knew it was finished, she told me to take her to court. I contacted a lawyer and asked for help, and he said, yeah, I can help. I'll need 200,000 baht up front, please. I didn't have that. Had nothing, and nothing left. I mean, I had a few £1,000 and that was it. I couldn't believe the position I was in, but I brought it on myself if I think about it, because I allowed her to have control. Everything I had became hers, and it was painful and sickening at the same time. The moment she told me to take her to court, that was when I knew it was finished, because it was as if she'd already prepared that line well in advance. I just looked at her and said, please, can we work this out? And she looked at me and said, no, it's it. Everything I've done is for you, and all you do is jealous me. I know like you. Those exact words, and I'm not paraphrasing. And from there, it was a question of getting together what I could get together and thinking about where I can go from there. I had to leave the house, and as I said, I called a lawyer. No use, I didn't have enough money for that. I thought about renting somewhere and trying to find some extra work, but I quickly understood that wasn't going to happen. And then the realization is, I've got to go back to England, and that's my only option. Not only that, I'm going to have to go back and rely on the government for assistance. That was a shocking realization, and one I never thought would happen to me. When I landed in England, it felt like I was waking up after a really bad nightmare, and still understanding that the worst was yet to come. It was cold, it was miserable, it was grey, and the people around you looked all bored and like they didn't want you to be there. Not in the sense that they didn't want you to be there, just in the sense that they were indifferent. It was so different back in Pattaya when you felt welcomed and like you were cherished and you wanted to be there. I had to stay with a cousin for a week, on his sofa, and for a guy my age that wasn't the most comfortable. Then I went to a bedsit, then a ground floor flat that the council helped me with, but it took a long time. I never thought I'd be that man, waiting for assistance from the government, but that's what I became. I went on benefits and I lived in a dreadful place, the place I'm in now, and I hate it so much. Coming to terms with the fact that I'll never go back to Thailand, and never even leave England again, and I'll never be able to do anything fun. It's hard, and it has been hard, and it's still feeling like that all these years later. I'm still feeling so depressed about it. But it's one of those things that is a lesson that I have to accept. It's not a clever thing to happen. It's not a clever thing to do. It's stupid. And I ruined my life because of a 25-year-old Thai bar girl who took everything from me. The thing was, I gave it to her willingly. She didn't scam me. She didn't do anything other than what she wanted to do, and I was the one that went along with it. That's what makes it the hardest. I just expected she would do everything my way and be kind and respectable and the loving wife that I ever so much wanted. And while she could be the loving wife for a little bit of time, most of the time she was exactly who she wanted to be, and it was as if I had to put up with that just to get the little bit that I needed. That's not the way it should have been. That's not the way it should have been at all, and it's awful to think about. Starting again at such an old age is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. At least I tried Thailand. I tried to convince myself. At least I had a go. But I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't have a go, because look at where I am today. So much worse off than I would have been if I never left England at all.